Hello, my name is Andrew Bergen,
And I'm Regina Bergen.
and today we'll be discussing 5 big points about global warming, starting with what is the biggest issue about global warming, and continuing to why hasn't global warming been solved yet. Number 3 is biggest change we could make with the biggest impact. Number 4 is what is the biggest cause of global warming, and number 5 is what can we do to play our part in the prevention of global warming. So let's just get right into it. What do you believe is the biggest issue with about global warming? And by issue, I mean problem that it presents, like habitat destruction or yeah, up to you.
Well, from the research that I've done, which is not a lot, one thing that has really stuck out in my mind is that global warming is causing the glaciers to melt and the icebergs to melt. And so the level of the water is increasing across the planet. And the melting and the extra warmth is also causing the animals in the oceans to not be able to survive because it's too warm. That is
Yeah, that's a
my
really big issue is ice pack melting because it affects a lot more than just sea levels too. Because in 100 years time or whatever, the sea level could rise so much that like places like Venice or New York even could be underwater completely, right? And yeah, it also affects the animals extremely hard because they're used to a certain temperature, and if you change it, that messes up their totally messes up their entire life cycle. And the ice pack melting is a really big issue about global warming, but I think it's more of an issue just because of the amount it affects habitats. Like not so much the sea level, because people can move, right? But the amount it affects the habitats of the animals is a lot bigger of an issue than people think.
So does it affect them just as does it affect them just as much in the other places in the world versus just say the Arctic?
Yeah, it does do affect them in lots of places, like mangrove bushes and stuff like that. It affects everyone's anything that lives in the water, really, and survives on water, which is everything. Like it can increase the sea levels to a point where mangrove forests can't exist anymore because, like, you know how those work, right? It's like a forest that's basically in water, but if it's too deep and full of salt water, then it messes it up. And like things that live in the deltas, like cranes and storks and herons and stuff like that, that feed on fish that live in deltas can't exist anymore because there's too much salt water.
So it
Right?
hasn't really affected it yet.
Well, yeah, it affects it even now. Like people say that I think it's like in the last 10 years, there's been like a 6 centimeter increase in sea levels worldwide, and that's a big issue because
Yeah,
six
6 centimeters.
centimeters doesn't sound like a lot, but in just 10 years, that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
in 100 years, that's 60 centimeters,
Yeah.
and it's not slowing down either. Like global warming is not being solved right now, basically, and so it's going to increase the sea levels and increase them faster and faster the longer we take to solve this.
Hmm.
Um, any other big issues about global warming you could think of?
Um, I guess the increase in temperatures in all of the world.
Hmm.
I don't know enough about it to expand on it, but I've
Yeah, like
heard that is
the
the case.
temperatures that affect people can really affect how much disease and heat stroke and stuff can affect people in like places like Africa or like even Australia. Like the really hot places are getting even hotter, and so diseases are being harder and harder to contain because of how ridiculously hot it can get at sometimes, right? And
Affects crops.
it affects crops really bad, which is another thing because there aren't many crops in Africa and stuff, but the ones that are being affected by global warming. It also affects like young children, really hard because young children can't survive very long if it's really hot out, right? And especially since the infant mortality rate is already pretty high in places like Africa, or um, yeah, it's a big issue for sure. Like just the temperature change, and
So, what kind of temperature changes are
well,
happening?
it's not quite as apparent now, but scientists say that even now nothing is being, or there's already, even if we stop global warming today, there would already be a 2 degree temperature change in the next like 25 years. It would get 2 degrees hotter around the globe because of,
In the next 25
yeah,
years, or every year for the next 25
no,
years?
no, in the next 25 years.
Yeah.
Because just the amount of damage that has been done already is a big enough deal to affect the globe for like a generation to come. You know, even if we stopped it right now, it would still keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
And um, but yeah, it's increasing. 8 of the 10 hottest years on record have occurred in the last, I think, 15 years,
Oh, wow.
like across the globe or whatever. So yeah, I think the biggest issue is definitely the. It can definitely be the temperature change because it just affects so much, right? Um, Number two is why hasn't global warming been solved yet? Like, and it could you could just say it's too hard, but what do you think is the are some reasons that global warming hasn't been solved yet?
I think it's a lot of our dependence on fossil fuels because that's
Mm-hmm.
affecting global warming enormously.
Yep.
And so until we find an alternative source of energy that all governments and that's a win-win situation for
Mm-hmm.
everybody,
Yeah.
financially, mentally, emotionally, physically, then our dependency on fossil fuel will continue to affect global warming.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. Dependency on fossil fuel, because think about how much stuff runs on natural gas and petrol and petroleum and whatever else, right?
All
And
our dependency on
yeah,
plastics.
yeah, and none of it is renewable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like none of it contributes to solving global warming at
No.
all. It only affects it negatively. And that's definitely an issue that needs to be changed. Like you said, we need to find better ways to use renewable energies that help the environment
Mm-hmm.
instead of just harming it for no reason. Um, yeah, I think another reason is, I guess, lack of caring and I guess punishment for using all those fossil fuels, right? Like nobody thinks, "Hey, I should not buy this next Lego set that's coming out because me doing that is actually hurting the environment," right?
Because of
Nobody
all the plastic.
because of all the plastic and stuff that they use. Or nobody thinks, "Hey, maybe I should," or not nobody, but not as many people there needs to be thinks, "Hey, I should shorten my shower today to help the environment," you know? Like
Or instead of, oh, I'll take the bus or bike
yeah,
downtown, I'm just going to take the car.
yeah, I'll just drive.
Yeah.
Everyone else is driving, so I'll just drive too.
Exactly.
That's another issue. Is like the hive mind needs to shift from everyone else isn't doing it to everyone else is doing it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's another reason why global warming hasn't been solved yet. It's just because everyone thinks no one else is doing anything.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you think Tom down the street, he drove to work yesterday. Why should I if he's
Yeah,
not going to help?
That's right.
You know?
Well, and then that kind of is related to everybody being so busy, right? Because when you're busy, you think, oh, I'll just take the car, or
Yeah.
I'll just go out to eat and use these plastic containers or these styrofoam
Yeah.
containers to bring it
Yeah.
back. Or,
The increase in, I guess, speed of the world that we live in now. Like
that's right. Yeah.
even 20 years ago, it was so much slower, right? Like
Yeah.
no one had the internet. No one had.
Yeah, it was just starting.
Yeah,
20
it was
years
just
ago,
starting
so,
out like 20
yeah.
years ago, right? So now everyone needs things instantly,
Yeah.
but that uses a lot of resources, right?
That's the key, actually. Instant gratification. People
Yeah.
want instant gratification.
Yeah, and that's another thing too is solving global warming is not instant gratification.
No.
No, it's going to take some time, and the higher up people that control companies and governments and stuff aren't into they're not as into the long run as their political ads make them think.
Yeah.
Make them
that's
seem,
right.
right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of we can worry about global warming later, but right now I'm about to make a killing on this business deal, right?
Or
People
I'm
are more
politically, oh, I'm going to look real good and I'll get reelected.
yeah, politically and industrially people are more concerned with profits and success than actually changing things environmentally, right? Like there's things like the Green Party, but again, nobody cares enough to change things up to vote for them.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they'll just keep going with the same old thing that works, right?
But doesn't work.
But
at
it
the
doesn't
same
work that
time.
great, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I think the biggest issue is just complacency.
I do too.
Yeah, just the lack of people that want to change
That's right.
global warming. Like, everyone, of course, would love to change global warming. Like, they wake up tomorrow morning and they see on the news, oh yeah, global warming's solved, by the way.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that anymore. Everyone would love that, right?
Yeah.
But the amount of people that are willing to go out and be a part of the solving is not high enough for what we need right now.
Yeah.
Because even now, like, that 2 degrees temperature change is happening. Like, even if everything were to stop and no one were to produce any more fossil fuel exhaust or anything, it would still change 2 degrees, which would melt the ice caps more, which would affect temperature more.
Mm-hmm.
And
so in a way, it's kind of selfishness on one hand, because people just want the luxuries, well, especially in North America,
yeah,
for
developed
instance,
countries,
developed
yeah.
countries, yeah. So it's a combination of selfishness, and which leads to complacency, and also the win-win situation in regards to profit loss to bring in
Yeah.
a different kind of fossil fuel.
Yeah, yeah,
a
that's a
different
really good
kind
point.
of energy source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, number 3 is, what is the biggest change you think we could make that would have the biggest impact? Which, both realistic and totally unrealistic.
So when you say that, do you mean we as an individual, or us as a country?
Either one. Or no. Like, as a whole, what is the biggest change, like, that could happen as a whole?
Well, I truly believe it's changing to an alternative source of energy.
Yeah.
Instead of fossil
Mm-hmm.
fuels, because that affects so many things: the gasoline, the plastics we use, the styrofoam, the clothes, you name it. There's plastic in almost
Yep.
everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Granted, maybe we could cut back 90% and use only what we absolutely need to for plastic, or change it to some kind of other, I don't know,
Material.
material.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good one, but that's, I think, would be make the biggest have the biggest
Yeah,
impact.
if we could eliminate the large amount of fossil fuels that we use,
Yeah.
it would definitely affect a lot, because fossil fuels both ruin the environment extracting them, right? Because
Yeah.
they have to go in and bust everything up just to get that stuff out. It ruins the environment processing them, because it belches out a ton of greenhouse gases and smoke, right?
Yeah.
And then what we use the fossil fuels for ruins the environment even after it's done processing, right? Because it goes into cars and they produce more smoke, or it goes into plastic and that sits on the earth for 500 years, or it goes into Legos, like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, that is
it just
Problem.
doesn't affect the world in a good way, in any way. Right?
So in a way, it's
Fossil fuels.
consumerism that is causing it, because if people didn't want the best and think I should have that and I should have that, they would stop buying, and then they would stop producing so many plastics and
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yeah, but
or
at the,
having the nicest car. Or
yeah,
how about there should be a competition on who has the nicest bike helmet?
who
or
has the greenest
yeah,
house.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That would be a good shift
Mhm.
in consciousness.
Yeah, but I think another big change we could make is rewarding more for using alternative sources of energy.
Yeah, because
Right?
society as a whole are used to being rewarded for doing good, right?
Yeah, no, but not
That's
even that.
how
It's like,
inspired.
yeah.
That's what inspires many people.
Yeah, but it's like, they do give you grants for switching to hydroelectric power or solar power or geothermal power, but there needs to be more incentive for big companies to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, because
Because,
they're causing the most.
yeah,
problem.
they use most of the energy, right? Like, the government could give you $3,000 or whatever to switch your house to solar energy. But what if the government could give money to BC Hydro to switch from, like, fossil fuel powers or hydroelectric powers to greener
Coal.
things like geothermal energy, and then with the rewards that BC Hydro could get, they could reward their customers for using that power in their houses, right? And then that would make people use the good power, and then the government would, again, like, give more money to BC Hydro for doing this stuff, right? And it would be like a cycle of life that would just introduce more and more renewable energies to the planet.
Yeah, I guess it's the big companies like Petro and
Yeah, like they use the most stuff.
Husky
But
and-
at the same time, another big change we can make is like getting everybody to start caring.
yeah, and I
Know what
guess
I
they're
mean?
doing that in the schools, right?
Yeah, they're introducing
lots.
learning.
They talk about lots of recycling and being conscious of alternatives in regards to walking instead of taking the vehicle
Yeah,
and things
and
like
good
that.
stuff like that.
So maybe it's the older generation we need to start
I
educating.
really
right?
think that this generation is learning more about global warming than the last one for sure, and that's definitely going to help out a lot of the problem, right?
Yeah.
People are being conscious of it and changing their mindset from I don't care about that to maybe I should care about this.
That's
right.
right. So it's the young generation that's going to make the biggest difference. So really, we need to put all the older people in school and say, hey,
Yeah.
look, your kids are actually making a difference, and they wanted to make a difference, but you aren't. You're
Yeah.
not making the effort, and maybe you should listen to your children because it's their planet when the older generations pass away.
Exactly. You think of any other big changes we could make?
Well, big changes. Is there a question on? Oh, player part is the last one. Okay, biggest change with the biggest impact.
Yeah, really, it's just
Well, you did most of the
Yeah.
research, so what
Yeah.
do you think?
I think it's just alerting not alerting more people to the problem, but alerting them to the fact that they can solve it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, because it's not just the governments and the politicians and the company owners that are polluting, it's everyone, right? Everybody needs to change.
Well, and maybe that is part of the problem is that people don't think they can make a difference, right? They think, oh, well, it's just one trip
Yeah,
to the
absolutely.
grocery store. Oh, it's just one Chinese food container.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just this and this.
Times
and,
it by a
Yeah.
billion
Yeah.
Chinese food containers a year or whatever.
Yeah.
There was a number I read somewhere about that. Like, there's a billion takeout containers that get used every year or something like that.
Wow.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah. So that's maybe educating people that every little bit does make a difference.
Yeah. An unrealistic solution, the unrealistic big change would be to pull out everyone's brain and rewire them to not use any more plastic. You know?
Well, and also an unrealistic solution would be to say, okay, you get punished or you get fined every time you use a vehicle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you have to pay like extra money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So if you're taking your car, you go through a toll and you get charged an extra $50, which goes right to
Yeah,
anti-global
yeah,
warming
exactly.
or whatever.
Environmental.
Yeah,
issues.
that's not realistic.
No.
Another unrealistic way would be to just tell all the big companies that there's no more plastic.
Yeah.
And, but there are some changes happening. Like I think it's in California where they don't have plastic bottles anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
That's actually another big change we can make is
Yeah.
reducing plastic bottles.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we use a lot of those.
Because we used to do it before.
Yeah.
What did we do before plastic? Let's go back to that.
Yeah.
For example, and let's get the horses out.
Yeah, no more cars, horses only.
That's right. You get bonuses like environmental bonuses when you bring in your horse poo that you captured downtown when the horse pooped on the street.
Something like that. So number 4 is, what do you think is the biggest cause of global warming? And by biggest cause, I don't mean greenhouse gases. Next question, but why? Yeah, you know what I mean.
Well, isn't that the same as
what is
number
the
1?
biggest cause of global warming? No, the biggest issue about global warming is number one. Like what the biggest problem is. But what is the biggest cause? Why do you think global warming
Even exists.
even exists? Really?
That's a really good question. You could get really deep into that.
That's what we're trying to do.
So, for instance, in a way, everybody is destroying themselves and the environment. If people started respecting themselves and respecting what they did and respecting the environment and nature, actually, maybe that would be the answer, is people's disregard for nature.
Yeah.
They don't realize that at the rate we're going to destroy the planet,
Mm-hmm.
not only from global warming, but from lack of food and, all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
So,
like it's not just, oh, the temperature's getting hotter, whatever, I don't care. That means I can wear shorts longer.
yeah, that's
But
right.
it's like an issue like the temperature's getting hotter, but not as many people seem to stop and realize that means less crops, less time to do things, earlier spring blooming, like all that stuff, right?
And it's hurting the animals, right? If you're connected to nature, you're not going to go out and say, "Oh, I think I'll go and kill all these 500 frogs that I see at the beach,"
Yeah.
right? Maybe a person will think twice and say, "You know what? I think instead I will use glass instead of using that Ziploc bag. I'll use a container that already exists, and then
Yeah.
I'll just wash it, and it will have less environment." Or another thing would be to wear. That's kind of going into next. So we'll
Yeah.
just keep on the biggest cause of global warming.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest cause of it is both a lack of governmental, I guess, not support, but pushing of, hey, fix this, kind of, like there aren't any green parties in power
Right.
anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like no governmental system is based on let's fix the planet, right? Everyone's worried about let's find more jobs for people,
Let's make more money.
let's make more money, let's introduce new
better.
laws, let's look better, right?
Yeah.
But people don't realize that if you fix the planet, then that would look pretty freaking good on your resume.
Yeah, that's right. I'd
Like,
vote you
yeah,
in again,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Like if there were more influential political parties that actually cared about changing the planet, then there would be a lot more change. But at the same time, complacency is a huge cause of it because people don't care, right? They just whatever.
Looking out for themselves.
Yeah, we'll let someone else worry about that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Let someone else do it. Yeah. Because, we tend to give our power away to the governments or to our employers or, that kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
another example of
Yeah, totally.
giving our power away.
It's right, because lots of people think, well, the government will fix it. It's their job, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they don't realize that, hey, I could fix a lot of the problem.
Yeah.
But at the same time, then they get to thinking, okay, so I'll go do this, but Tim down the street is not going to do it with me, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then, whatever, I won't do it then.
What'd you call it? Hive mentality?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Sheep. The sheeple are
exactly.
The sheeple are just doing things the way they've been doing them for the last.
Yeah.
So more people have to make an effort, and then more people will follow those people, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah. So definitely the biggest cause would be complacency from everyone.
Yeah.
Like from the lower class, like just the regular class people, right? Like you and me. Complacency from them, and then complacency from like business owners that just need to make more money, make more jobs and stuff, and then complacency from the government, right? Because they're not endorsing using renewable resources or anything. Like, sure, in the papers they are, like, that's all the reports say, right? Like, oh yeah, look, they have this new green policy where if you trade in your bottles you get an extra 2 cents or whatever. But they're not doing those things. No, they're not doing those things to help the environment. They're doing those things to look like the sort of person who cares.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so complacency, and then what was your reason? Biggest cause?
Well, there's I don't
Yeah,
remember.
I guess just complacency, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So number 5, what can we do to play our part in the prevention of global warming?
We can follow through on what we say we're going to do.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if we say we're going to take a shorter shower, then let's actually do it. If we say we're going to use glass instead of plastic, then let's do it.
Yeah.
So, when an onion is cut up, don't put it in a Ziploc bag. Put it in a existing container, even if it's plastic, right?
Yeah.
Because
you reuse it.
yeah, because you reuse
Yeah.
it.
If everyone in the entire world followed through, then global warming would be a much smaller issue. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, like
Another thing would be to run as many errands as you can in one day in your vehicle, instead of starting the vehicle up 5 times to do 7 different errands. To start it up
Yeah.
once to do 7 errands. If
yeah,
that's
that's a really
possible.
good point. Actually, is
Or
more efficient use of resources. I
Yeah.
guess
Yeah,
as a
that's
whole,
right.
like plastics and plants and everything. Like maybe you don't need to go buy the Lego pack, right?
Yeah,
Maybe you
that's
don't
right.
need to go buy the
Go out in nature and play with some sticks
yeah
instead. Yeah. So yeah, we can do our part, instead of going to the grocery store 4 times a week. Buy what you need at the beginning of the week, and maybe go one extra time or something
yeah
like that. Or when produce comes in on produce day, do your shopping
yeah
then, and then
hmm
down the road you can just take your bike for the little things after that,
yeah
or something like that.
yeah. I think a really big thing we could do too is like actually like go forth with the mindset of, hey, let's fix this, instead of, hey, let's do it, and I don't know, I'll do it for a week or whatever, and
Yeah,
we'll see if it works.
exactly.
Kind of, we need to like do it and then continue to do it, right?
That's right. And
'Cause-
realize that we do make a difference, because when
yeah,
we think we make a difference, then the next guy can think they make
yeah,
a difference.
that's a
and
really
so
good point
on,
actually.
and
Like,
so on,
make
and
sure
so.
you realize that you're making a difference
Yeah,
by
that's
doing
right.
that.
And not be lazy, because it is easier to grab a Ziploc bag than walk 10 steps to bend over
Yeah.
and get a container that you're going to have to wash, right? So, yeah,
Yeah,
there's all those
it's easier
things.
to go to the store instead of
In your car.
instead of biking
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
People need to not do the easy things as much and instead do the more rewarding things.
Yeah, rewarding for the environment,
Yeah,
and
and for
rewarding.
you, honestly, like
Yeah,
you can
because
save a lot of money. I was reading, there was a previous assignment on this where I had to look up the advantages and disadvantages of solar power, and apparently, if you installed a medium-sized solar energy thing for say $3,000 or whatever, which you could get help from the government with, um, it'll pay for itself in 15 years, right?
Right.
But what an issue is, what kind of college student can afford $3,000 to pay for solar power when he needs power right now
Mm-hmm.
on a budget, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
we need more incentive to
Right.
use renewable resources, like
Right. Solar power and wind and
geothermal, like stuff that will continue to benefit the planet, right?
Yeah, that will definitely help motivate people to make a difference.
Yeah,
right?
if there was rewards for, like, if you made more money than you spent on solar power, everyone would get solar power,
Yeah.
right? Because
Well,
this
there
is
you
profit,
go.
that's value, right?
Yeah.
Just go and get solar power, make $1,000.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's many things that we can do as an individual.
Yeah, and there's lots of research you can do too. Is like you just look up things to do, and then hey, yeah, okay, I'll go do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the individual effort.
Yes.
Yeah, wow, that's a good conclusion. Dang. In conclusion, it's all about the individual effort that you put in
Yes.
that solves it.
Because they say when you change yourself, you can change the world.
When you change yourself, people will look at you and see, hey,
They've made a difference.
they made a difference. I could probably do that too.
That's
you know?
right. So
Anyways,
That is our discussion on
Rant.
global warming,
Yeah,
and we could go
5 big
on and
points.
on, but we're now at
Yeah, pretty
29
close to the
minutes
end.
and 54
Yeah.
seconds.
So
So thank you very much for
yeah,
listening.
yeah.
Thanks for the discussion, Andrew,
Yeah.
and we'll
Thank you
talk
for
to you
helping me out with this.
about the. You're welcome.
Hello, my name is Andrew Bergen,
And my name is Corey Bergen.
today we'll be talking and discussing 5 big points about global warming. Starting with what is the biggest issue about it, and why hasn't global warming been solved yet? The biggest change we can make with the biggest impact. We'll be discussing what the biggest cause of global warming is, and finally, what we can do to play our part in the prevention of global warming. So let's get right into it. What do you think is the biggest issue about global warming?
Well, really, I think the issue at hand is that if we don't do something about global warming and start doing something about it now, it's
Yeah.
going to be far too late. If we keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, it's going to be way too late to do anything about it. We're already
Yeah.
almost past the tipping point, or we are at the tipping point right now where, uh, 5, 10, 20, 50 years down the road, it's anything that you do is going to be negligible, the effect of it, because it's just far too late. We
Yeah.
should have started this years ago.
I totally agree. And actually, as of now, scientists are saying that there is already a 2 degrees climate change in effect, even if we completely shut off all greenhouse gases
So
and
that
causes global warming.
we can never go back.
Exactly, we're never going back. But what is the biggest like single problem that global warming presents? I guess like how is it affecting the world the worst, in your opinion?
Uh, just the climate change. It's you look at places now that are centers of agricultural production. If with a 2 or 3 degree increase in temperature, how is that going to change those centers of production? And you know, granted, perhaps you have to change where you're producing most of your food. You might have to move it to a different place. So it might be beneficial to some areas to actually have a 2 degree change in temperature,
Yeah,
but in some areas it's not. It's obviously not going to be beneficial.
yeah,
It's going to be drier, and therefore you're going to be you're faced with the probability that you're not going to have the um, the area or the capability to grow enough food to feed everyone.
I agree. Yeah, it's definitely the environmental effects are the worst, like the plants and stuff, and agriculture as a whole, for sure. Um, Another big point too is the, I guess, habitat changes for animals and stuff.
Right.
It's harder for animals to live in lots of different places now because of global warming, and I think that's definitely an issue that needs to be solved really soon, or else we're going to see lots of species die out much faster than normal.
Right.
Yeah.
And another thing to think about is weather changes. Um,
Oh,
like
yeah.
we've seen in the past few years, the severity and the occurrence of severe weather is increasing
Hmm.
dramatically.
Yeah, like the El Nino and things like that. Yeah, it's definitely a big issue because it affects both habitats and also like buildings and structures. Like the amount, like hurricanes and tidal waves and stuff like that is a really big issue to humans too. Like not just the natural life, I guess. So number two, why hasn't global warming been solved yet,
Uh,
in your opinion?
in my opinion, and it's just one man's opinion, but I believe the biggest stepping stone to solving global warming is that the people that have the ability to make the biggest changes are also the people that have the most to lose if we do make the changes. Like,
Yeah,
for
I agree.
example, if I'm running a multi-billion-dollar business that depends on me pumping greenhouse gases into the atmosphere every day, I'm not really going to be motivated to change all that and start losing money.
Yeah,
Whereas the little person who's out there idling his car for an extra 10 minutes a day to warm it up, I mean, granted, there's a billion people that are out there doing it every day, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to what
Yeah,
the
compared to
quote unquote big boys are putting into the environment.
yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's no punishment for polluting everything. Like
No, there
there
isn't.
isn't
There's yeah.
fines or anything.
On the contrary, it's more of a, oh, you polluted, like look at all the pollution you're putting out, but here's all the money you're making.
Yeah.
It's not a
Hmm.
yeah, it's not an issue of you're the biggest polluter, you should get a fine. It's more an issue of, well, don't we should we'll look into that later
Yeah.
down the road sometime.
Yeah,
Right?
that's another issue too is the amount of people that just think, yeah,
It'll fix
it'll
itself, or
fix
the next
itself, or
generation can worry about it,
yeah,
or I'm too
stuff like
busy
that.
making money off it to do
Exactly.
anything
Yeah,
about
there's
it.
too much.
Yeah,
There's not enough complete caring about
right.
the subject, I guess.
It's
And
complacency is a big thing.
complacency, exactly. Governmental complacency, as well.
Right,
Right. Like,
governmental and individual. I
yeah.
mean, like I talked a few minutes ago about how, the average guy running his car for an extra 10 minutes doesn't make that big a difference, but it is a difference. I mean,
Yeah.
if
Absolutely.
if everybody was to do it, then, it would, maybe it would help. We're not, oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
we're picking it up. We're
Back
good. Yeah. But yeah, like individual complacency is also a big deal. Like, cause yeah, that one extra guy that runs his car, or the one extra guy that leaves the faucet on while he brushes his teeth.
Right,
There's a
yeah,
billion other
yeah.
people doing that. That's it all adds up, for sure.
So it's an ingrained complacency in everyone. It really, when you think about it, I guess it doesn't really matter if you're the multi-billion-dollar uh, factory pumping it out, or you're the guy sitting in your car. It's all, if everyone did it, then
Yeah, everyone is doing it, and
Mhm.
so nobody
we're
is.
all responsible. So we all need
Exactly.
to look at the answer.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think another big issue too is just, I think, the lack of caring from politicians and stuff. Like, look at the Green Party, for example. When's the last time they won a majority in
Never.
anything, really?
Yes,
Right?
they have one seat in
Yeah,
Parliament.
exactly. But everyone's just too focused on everything but global warming. Like we could cut down on emissions, or we could make an extra $100 million in this department, right? What do you want to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all, and we have all these people that we're responsible for all these people that have to have jobs.
Yeah.
Well, in the manufacturing sector, how do you all of a sudden cut down emissions if by cutting emissions you also cut 25% of your workforce?
I agree.
That's-
Yeah.
It's we're at, where is the answer? Because
Yeah.
we're at a point where it's a fairly severe cure.
Yeah, yeah, you need a drastic change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so, number 3 is, what is the biggest change we could make that would have the biggest impact? Like one single change that you could make, do you think?
Realistically or unrealistically, I guess.
We could cover both. We'll go realistic first.
Realistic?
Yeah.
I would think that punishment for polluting would be,
Yeah, fines.
and fines that actually make them stand up and take notice, not a
Not a little
not a
slap on the wrist.
$25,000
Yeah.
fine for a company that makes $1 billion in
Yeah.
a quarter,
I agree.
because that's, it doesn't do anything. It's not even a slap on the wrist. That's
Yeah,
not even
exactly.
a touch on the wrist. So something like that would definitely make, realistically, would make change happen. Not overnight, obviously, because it's going to be a situation where companies are going to have to see that there are consequences to
Mhm.
to not following the rules. Yeah, unrealistically, the biggest change with the biggest impact, I guess, just shut everything off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All the things.
everything. Just
Yeah.
shut everything down for a week and see what
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah, actually, that would open a lot of eyes. Actually, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, to go further into the realistic change, pollution taxes could be a good idea, based on how, either A, how much you're polluting, or B, like you said, a $25,000 fine or on a $1 billion company isn't that big a deal. But if it was based on how much money you make,
Hmm.
like maybe if you go like there needs to be set limits for pollution
Right.
that you can make, right? Like say someone churns out 100,000 pounds of CO2 like every second day or whatever. Do you fine them on how much CO2 they're producing or how much money they are making? And I think it should be a percentage on how much money you're making, because that
Right.
would incite companies, if companies could save money by reducing emissions because it would reduce taxes and fines and stuff, then I think they would be a lot more motivated to actually attempt to reduce emissions and
Yeah, because
petition
now
the government.
they already have carbon taxes that that companies are hit with, and they just if they know they're going to be over, then they just go and they just purchase more credits toward their carbon tax.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
we need more.
a bigger fine, a bigger hit in the bottom line
Yeah,
would have more impact. It would obviously it's going to impact everyone. People are going to feel it all the way down the line, like the person that's working in the factory. If all of a sudden the company gets hit with $1 billion fine, and obviously he's going to feel it more than the CEO of the company
yeah,
right away, because he's not going to have a job. But as we had said before, you can't take little baby steps right now. You got to take
absolutely.
it's got
Yeah.
to be big, huge steps.
Big, huge
Yeah.
man steps. Yeah. Um, but I guess another issue would be when people protest the punishment, right? Because nobody would take that lying down.
No,
They're not
that's
just
right.
going to, oh
Oh,
yeah,
here's
okay,
my I got
yeah,
$1 billion fine. Okay, yeah,
yeah, oh
yeah,
okay, I'll take this. They'll
yeah.
fight it in
No, it'll
court,
fight
and
it.
it'll,
It'll go years and years before you
yeah,
ever see anybody actually ever having to pay something.
yeah. So, what's another change we could make?
So is that a toothless
Yeah,
kind of
you would,
idea,
yeah,
because there's no bite to it, right? You just,
exactly.
oh, I'm not paying that. My lawyers will tie that up for
Yeah,
years and years. So
20
I
years
guess,
until I'm
yeah,
dead and off this planet or whatever, right? Yeah, that's definitely the issue, is the amount of people that are, whatever, I'll be gone in a while anyways.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, another change we could make, I think, is just cutting down on personal use of resources like electricity and stuff like that. There could be, theoretically, if you were in a big city, that big city is producing a lot of emissions,
Hmm.
right? And I think a big change that could be made is just individual cities doing their part to ensuring a better future, right? Like installing greener light bulbs in
Right.
all their streetlights,
More solar,
more solar energy for everyone.
more recapture of waste
Yeah,
energy,
yeah,
and would
that too.
be there has to be a point at which the governments are going to say, okay, this is where we're going to put our money and our time and our effort into. You know, you're not going to fix it overnight, but it is going to take years. But
Yes.
at some point, you have to say, okay, we have to start. So, more credits for people that want to switch over to solar energy.
Yeah,
More credits for municipalities that want to capture waste gas and waste heat and reuse it, and more geothermal. I mean, there's no geothermal plants in British Columbia right now, and we have, there's so much
yeah, a
potential
lot
there,
of potential.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I
But
think,
it's a point where nobody wants to change, and nobody wants to put the money out there to change.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are a few people though, like David Suzuki and lots of foundations like that that are interested in change, but it's not a big enough portion of the
Society. Yeah.
society, exactly. But yeah, that's a good change we could make too, is
Incentivize
incentivizing
change.
change
Hmm.
with rewards, like you said, like credits for solar energy, right? Maybe your power bill could be cheaper if you
Yeah,
run
or
it on
if
solar,
you want
right?
if you want to change over to solar, make it
Yeah,
so that the government, helps you,
yeah,
gives you,
exactly, helps you.
a
Yeah,
percentage of what it is. Like it costs you $3,000 to change over to solar power, then you know give some credits back.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, governmental support could definitely influence a lot of change. Um, another thing would be, oh, I forgot to say
Another you have another idea
something. Yeah, I had another idea for change,
for
but I'm
change.
totally forgetting. Drawing a blank here.
Yeah.
Um, I guess yeah, just making it more beneficial to use solar and wind
Right.
energy
Yeah.
too. You
Yeah.
know,
That's
like
right.
making it more accessible for the common person instead of it being so expensive. But also, because solar energy right now with the technology we have is not nearly, I guess, efficient enough, right?
Right.
Like it is good enough, but for big companies to use it, it needs to become a more efficient technology. So I think a big change we could make would be like governmental support of solar and wind and geothermal energy projects. You know,
Right.
like changing from okay, here we'll spend 100 million bailing this company out of debt or whatever, but we
Or
won't spend any money.
$1 trillion
Yeah,
bailing
exactly. But we won't spend any money on your little solar energy project
might change the
that might
world.
change the
Yeah.
world out
Exactly.
entirely,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's a great change we could make.
So really, it has to start with everyone. It has to start with people at the top. It
Yeah,
has to
and
start with people at the bottom. It
people
has
in
to
the
start
middle
with
too, right?
everyone. Everyone
Everybody.
has to do their share. You
Exactly.
can't just, it's one thing to say, okay, it's the big business guys that are making all the money that are making it impossible to change. But it is you at home.
Hmm.
You know, you have the power to affect change as well.
Yeah, we all live in this world, and we all gotta change it. I think isn't that a David Suzuki quote? I think so.
Hmm.
Yeah. So number four, what in your opinion is the biggest cause of global warming? Which is a really broad topic, actually. It's not like greenhouse gases. Next question.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
CO2. Yeah.
yeah, what do you think is the biggest cause of global warming?
Apathy.
App. Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Because no
Yeah.
one, like we just talked about, everyone is, oh, someone else will fix it,
Yeah.
or I can't do anything about it because I'm just one person.
Yeah, that's
So
a
you
big
go, you
important
just
part.
go along your everyday where you're contributing every day to greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
Everyone is.
Hmm.
Some people contribute more, some people contribute less, but we all we're all in our little corner of the world where we think that we A can't do anything to affect change, or B we just we don't care.
Yeah.
Some people just don't care, right? So I
That's a
think
good point.
I think one of the biggest things is just apathy. No one, you think I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. I think it's the mindset that well, no one else is doing anything, so I won't
Yeah,
do anything either.
exactly. Yeah,
Because imagine, say everyone in the entire world donated $1 to global warming, right? A dollar isn't that much. You can afford a dollar. Heck, you could even afford $30,
hmm
right? And that could cover for all the people that don't have a dollar, say. But if everyone did that, that's not that big a chunk out of your pocket, is it?
no,
But the problem is everyone's thinking, well, no one else is going to do it, so my share isn't going to help either, right?
yeah. So I'm not giving my dollar because
Yeah,
that guy down the street's not giving his
exactly.
dollar.
Yeah, we need more, I guess, incentive to help these projects and make sure they succeed, you know? Um, yeah, another, like, obviously the biggest, like, actual cause of it is probably greenhouse gases. But, I think a big issue is where did all these greenhouse gases come from, right? Like, is it because, like, you could just say, oh, it's greenhouse gases, and China produces a lot of them, but why does China produce so many? You know what I mean?
Exactly. They're producing so many greenhouse gases because we want what they're producing,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
And also because they just don't have the,
And they don't
like,
have the regulations that
yeah, they
that
don't
we
have the
have.
systems to reduce global warming and greenhouse gases, so they can't really do it as much, right? Like you said the other day, the Alberta tar sands produces how much? Like 1.2
One,
percent,
yeah,
right?
less than 1.5%
Yeah, of the total
global.
global emissions,
Yeah,
and China is like 50 something. Actually, I'm gonna look this up real quick. You wanna hold that?
yeah.
Um, yeah, like you said though.
They are by far the biggest producer of greenhouse gases in the world, but they don't have the regulations. They
Yeah,
don't have the well, and they're in that apathetic. They're just as apathetic as everyone else. Well, we have to continue to produce.
yeah,
We
produce stuff.
got mouths to feed. We got,
Exactly.
people got to make money. People got to do this and that.
Yeah, and I
You
think
know,
that's another issue that's causing global warming is just people worrying too much about things that aren't global warming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yes, jobs are important, and yes, we do need jobs to reduce global warming because that's how you make money to fund these things, right? But at the same time, people need to start, I guess, using those job opportunities to the fullest extent, right? Like, people could, like, if the government made greenhouse emissions stoppage like an entire field, that's a lot of jobs that could be created, right?
That's
like
true.
if you had an entire governmental like section devoted to stuff like that, then how many jobs could you fill, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be that's a lot of work that people could do. But just yeah, the lack, it all comes back to the apathy, I guess, of the nations as a whole. Like nobody cares enough to actually
Well, and
go
it's
full bore
it's
on it.
typical it's typical of humankind that you just think that you know the next someone else will fix it, or we have time to fix it, but we don't.
Yeah,
to be honest.
yeah. It's another issue. We have time to fix it, but we really don't, because like I said earlier, there's already a 2-degree change in effect. It's happening. There's no stopping it, right? But people are just thinking, well, if we just leave it, we'll leave it another 10 years. We'll think about that in 10 years from now, right? And that's just not a good issue, or a good enough reason to not do anything. You know what I mean? I can't find anything about this. Whatever. We'll just keep discussing things.
Yeah.
So 5. What can the common person do to play our part in the prevention of global warming? What is the biggest, not biggest even, just what can we do to prevent just the constant slide,
toward
yeah,
oblivion.
What can we do to slow the slide long enough to get the higher ups to stop the slide? You know what I mean?
I guess look into programs where you could change over from electricity to, say, solar power.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Make a conscious effort to not idle your car, to shut your lights off, to conserve energy, because really, every time you leave a light on, you're contributing.
Yeah.
Right? Every
Absolutely.
time you run that air conditioner when you don't really have to, you're contributing, right? Go outside, sit outside.
Yeah.
If
Put
it's
a sweater
hot,
on.
leave a window open or whatever, right? I mean, it's every time you turn that thermostat up when you're the least little bit cold in the wintertime, put on a sweater.
Yeah.
Right?
And
instead of having that furnace run constantly.
Whatever,
Yeah.
yeah.
Agitate, I guess, for change. Make sure that that people know that we're heading down the wrong path,
Yeah,
and we have to slow down.
We're going down the slide. We need to stick
slow
our feet
up a
out
bit.
and slow down the slide.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a really good point. Is we need to start caring
Right.
about
And
these issues.
the federal election is coming up soon. It's
too,
coming up
yeah.
this fall. Like make an effort to educate yourself
Educate.
on what the candidates are saying about that, and if they're not ready to play ball, then you put your vote somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
You know,
Because really, we can be a big part of the change, right?
that's right.
Voting. That's why democracy exists, is so we can
Yeah.
vote for things that we want, right? Like we can pass bills. You can petition to the government for change.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
I was
It has to
looking
be.
into
It
lobbying.
has to be
or
done
whatever.
because if you think about it, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, they're not gonna just decide.
They're
oh
just
yeah,
like everybody else.
that's a
They're
good
not
idea.
going to say, oh, you know what, we're going to go 180 degrees from where we are right
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
and we're going to make saving the planet our goal.
Yeah, our priority.
That's not going to happen until the last 10 minutes of, oh, maybe
Yeah.
we should do it now. Well,
like-
you're about 100 years too late.
Yeah. Sitting in the Yukon wearing a t-shirt and
Yeah.
shorts. Hey man.
Yeah, hey,
it's kind of hot out
pretty
here.
hot out here today.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do something.
Yeah. No, we need to. Yeah, like you said, agitate, and because they're not gonna the higher ups that have the most control over this are not going to do anything until
It's too late.
it's too late,
Yeah.
or until we act and say this is what we not want but need for our society, right? Like, we need to flip their line of thinking from how can I either make the most money or become the most successful or become the most popular to how can I fix the planet
Yeah.
for the next.
How can I make it better for the next generation?
Exactly, yeah.
And the generation after that.
And they do that in part. They create jobs and they create bills and laws to help maintain like a good society, but all that's pointless if you're in 50 years or whatever the sea level is going to rise by, I think it was 4 or 5 inches or something like that, right? And that's if we actually do our part in preventing global warming. Like, the sea levels are rising, the temperature is rising, but we need to act and stop it. You know what I mean? Because it's not going to fix itself.
No. Unless we're all gone, and then it'll fix itself.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Move
But that's
off-
not going to happen
Yeah, we'll
either.
go live on Mars and pollute that place instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point too. Is just we need to just shut your lights off. You know, turn down the thermostat. Take
Right.
your bike to work. You know, think about it. If everyone donated their energy and time, even just 10 minutes of going around the house, shutting the lights off, unplugging everything before bed. If everyone did that, there would be a huge reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, resource wasting. There'd just be.
That's right.
It would-
Yeah. So really, when it comes down to it, it starts with you. If you're not prepared, if you're not willing to do anything about it, then how can you expect anyone else to?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there needs to be like a broad, not a broader, but like a big organization that says, "Hey, we are doing something about this. You guys should do it too." You know what I mean? Because people follow. Whoa, what if we made energy reduction cool?
That's
Then all
right.
the people
Yeah.
would do it. Yeah. No, but people need a leader figure, I guess, to do things, right? Like, they're not just going to, okay, well, I'll just assume Johnny down the street is gonna prevent emissions with me, right? They're just gonna assume that Johnny down the street isn't going to do anything, so
That's
they don't
right.
need to do anything
Yeah.
either. So there needs to be some sort of, I guess, big picture, like, hey, everybody right now do this, like an Earth Day, you know, on
Exactly,
Earth Day.
yeah.
But there needs to be,
But we need to have like an Earth year.
Yeah,
Where
like
everyone
an Earth
does the
decade.
same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. For more than 5 minutes.
exactly, yeah, Earth hour is not nearly good enough, absolutely, because if there was like, and that brings me back actually to incentivizing, I guess, reduction in emissions, right? Like, if power companies could somehow tell that you shut your lights off and unplug everything at night, which you probably can, right?
Oh, yeah.
They got
Well,
all these
smart
smart
meters, right?
and stuff,
Yeah.
right? You could unplug everything at night, and they would say, "Hey, you know what? Good job. Here's like $30 off your next power bill." Think of how many people would love to save money on that, you know?
Yeah,
Like-
exactly. And at the same, you think about that at the same time. So the government needs to incentivize that company because they're not
Yeah.
going to want to say, oh, you know what, we're going to give everybody $30 off for shutting their lights off and not using the product that we make.
Yeah,
So that'd be like Chevy giving $100 to someone who buys a Ford.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So there has to be incentive to go ahead and do things like that, and we need to start now rather than
Yeah.
later, because later is going to be too late.
Yeah, but that goes back to the everyone has to do their part, you
Yeah.
know? Like, if the government would incentivize the middleman that provides your power or whatever to give you a reduction in power or in your spending when you like shut all your lights off, then you would shut all your lights off and the government or the power guy would
He wouldn't lose money.
he wouldn't
on
lose
the
money, but
deal, right?
he'd give you
Yeah.
like a reward for doing that, and then the government would supply, and it would just like be a huge
Well, and it would
food
be a
chain.
twofold thing too,
Yeah.
because you're actually shutting your lights off at night and unplugging things at night, and so you are saving already on your power bill. But then
Yeah.
to be rewarded on top of that
Mm-hmm.
would be more of an incentive for you to
Yeah.
continue it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think our time is almost up. Thank you for having this discussion with me.
This has been Corey
Yeah,
Bergen
this
and
is
Andrew Bergen
Andrew
discussing the various effects, causes, and effects
Cause, effect,
of
stuff,
global warming.
all sorts of things. Thank you for your time.